MMA rants and raves. Should Anderson Silva face Chael Sonnen in a rematch or face Vitor Belfort in his next upcoming fight? Now, let's talk about a potential rematch with Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva, and should Chael Sonnen get a rematch? My answer to this question is absolutely yes. He made Anderson Silva work unlike any time that he's had to work before in his professional mixed martial arts career. I mean, he basically was pounding Silva for the good part of 5 rounds. I've never seen anything like it. He was even outstriking Silva. That's insane. You know, for a guy who's not known for his striking. This guy's a wrestler, ground and pound specialist. He is not a striker, and he was outstriking him, especially in that first round. So he just made a mistake. And that's a point I want to make. With wrestlers have to work very hard to get victories. Usually do, not all the time. They have to get takedowns, which is very difficult. And then once they get the takedown, then the work just starts. They have to do ground and pound, they have to pass guard, change their guard. It's difficult. It's a lot of work. It's a time-consuming process. It's methodical and very effective for many wrestlers. I mean, just look at GSP's fights. He has to work very hard to get his victories. It's not how great GSP is. He's not a guy that just comes in and usually just knocks guys out right away. He's known for his wrestling, covers guys up, and works. Now, if you look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you could win a fight like that. It takes seconds. You just have to get in the right position. And that's what Silva did. He was just able to get on that triangle. He was waiting for an opportunity. And to Sonnen's credit, how good he was, the ground and pound and all that, he was never able to mount Silva. He was never able to get past his guard and get a mount. And that's how good Silva is on the ground. He's very intelligent on the ground. He was able to make sure that Sonnen was not be able to pass his guard, because then it can really get dangerous for him. But the point being is that that's the difference between these two fighting styles. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you can win a victory very quickly. It's comparable to striking. One punch, it's a knockout, it's over. Wrestling, it usually takes time. It's methodical. But anyway, it will be great because wrestling poses a matchup problem for Silva. And look at it in his past fights. I mean, this is a guy who's not that difficult to take down. You can take him down. The question is, can you beat him when he's down? And obviously, nobody's been successful, especially since he's been in the UFC, as far as wrestlers are concerned. They've had success against him, but they weren't able to put him away. Now, like I said, he deserves a title shot based on what happened in this fight. It was a classic fight. I just mentioned in my prior vlog, I think it was one of the greatest comebacks in UFC history. It was a classic, great fight. So, of course, everybody wants to see something like that again. Now let's talk about Vitor Belfort. Should Vitor Belfort get his chance at Anderson Silva? Now, the answer to that question is absolutely as well. I mean, here's a guy, Vitor Belfort. I've been following this guy throughout his career. He's a destroyer. I mean, this guy has faced monsters. I mean, tough schedule for any fighter. Randy Couture twice. He had to face Chuck Liddell, Alistair Overeem a couple of times, Wanderlei Silva. I mean, this is a lot of challenges. I mean, he's had to face a lot of competition, and he's done very well. The guy is very successful in mixed martial arts. And then, of course, don't forget in his last fight, which was stunning, he just knocked out Rich Franklin, basically one punch. I mean, that's how dangerous this guy is. That's how elite his striking is. So, he's a very dangerous fighter, and of course, I would love to see him fight Anderson Silva. I think it would be a great matchup to see 2 elite strikers go head-to-head. And finally, Silva might meet his match as far as somebody who has such talented striking. Now, there's a point I want to make about Vitor Belfort. Like I said, I followed him throughout his career. He had his most success at light heavyweight, and even some success at heavyweight. He's a big guy. The guy is broad, he's 6 foot tall, he's got big shoulders, he's muscular, and his natural weight class is just about light heavyweight. I mean, you even saw in his last fight, after he debuted to middleweight and had a few fights, he had to fight Rich Franklin in a catchweight fight. It was a 195 catchweight. This guy is not a middleweight. Now, the point I'm making here is that, like I said, he's a former champion at light heavyweight, former UFC light heavyweight champion. He's also a Cage Rage light heavyweight champion. He holds 2 titles in that weight class. As a middleweight, we haven't seen much success from him. Now, if I think if he's forced to slim down to middleweight, we've seen what weight cuts can do, especially from a guy who's actually fought at the heavyweight. That's a lot of weight to cut. And it can be draining on him, and it can really prevent him from being the best he can be. And we know how good Anderson Silva is at middleweight. So I think it's going to be a disadvantage for him. Now, we know in catchweight sometimes they don't have title implications, because if he's not going to fight as a middleweight, he's not going to fight for that particular title. But I don't think Belfort cares. I mean, think about it. This guy, if he fights Anderson Silva, I don't think it's going to matter if he has to fight for a title. I'm sure he wants to fight for a title. But if he has to fight for a catchweight and even let Silva keep his title, if he defeats Anderson Silva, you know what that means for this guy? I mean, you're talking about Hall of Fame implications, if he's not already considered. But if he defeats Anderson Silva, it would just put his career from here to like there, you know? And he, you know, if he does that, it'll be just enormous for his career. So that's just the point I wanted to make you. If he's going to fight him, it should be at a catchweight, at least 195 or 205, something like that. You know, at middleweight, I might have to give the advantage to Anderson Silva. I think you might see a situation of what weight cuts can do. We've seen it with Thiago Alves with his fight against John Fitch. We've seen what weight cuts can do. It was draining on him. He just didn't look the same. And I don't know if that's going to be the case with Belfort, but here's a guy who's a really big guy, like I said, was fought as a heavyweight, to go all the way down to middleweight. I don't know what the situation is with him now. He hasn't fought in a long time. But that's the fight I want to see if it happens. Definitely a catchweight. So as far as between the two, I'd like to see him face Belfort first. And as far as Sonnen, definitely down the road. If Silva's still fighting, or even if he defeats Silva, you know, who knows, maybe Sonnen against Belfort, but this is way down the road. And the reason I mention that is because I've been reading recently that Silva's injured. He might not even be back till March. So this discussion, you know, of course, might be premature. Who knows? I mean, that's a long time. A lot is going to happen between that time. So anyway, we'd like to know what you think about it. Should Sonnen get the rematch? Or should Anderson Silva, when he's back, face Vitor Belfort? You know, this whole thing has been like going up and down, up and down. It seemed like Belfort was supposed to fight Anderson Silva for a long time. Silva was injured, again he was injured, and Belfort got injured. So who knows what's going to happen. We'd like to know what you think about it. Please leave your comments below the video, rate this video, and subscribe. And thank you for tuning in.